Well, another day and another reaction to Colin Kaepernick's protest, this time from NBC football analyst Rodney Harrison, who had this to say to KBME Sports Talk 790 in Houston.
I'm a black man, and, Colin Kaepernick, he's not black, okay? He cannot understand what I face and what other young black men and black people face, or people of color face, on an every single basis. When you walk in the grocery store, when you walk in, and you might have $2,000 or $3,000 in your pocket, and you go up into a Foot Locker and they're looking at you like you're about to steal something.
Rodney Harrison later went on to apologize on Twitter. "I never intended to offend anyone. I was trying to speak about my experiences as an African American. I apologize to anyone that I offended. Wasn't meant to be hurtful to anyone. God bless. Last point, I want people to know I never even knew he was mixed. I should not have called Colin Kaepernick's race into question during this morning's radio interview. It was a mistake, and I apologize." Max, let's start with you here. What's your reaction to Harrison's comments?
Well, first of all, I believe him that he's not commenting. It wasn't commentary on the fact that Kaepernick was raised by his adoptive Caucasian parents, and that he's not counting the fact somehow that his biological father was African American. I believe him when he says that. I take it on face value. And so I think he embarrassed himself, Rodney Harrison did, because he was ignorant of a subject where, especially if you're an NFL analyst and your job is to know the NFL, that you think, how did he miss that one, that Kaepernick is a person of color? How did he not know? But then you step back and you know what you get wrong? You get wrong knowledge that you take for granted. Why didn't he look it up? Because he takes for granted that he knows someone's racial identity and never second guesses it, so never bothers to check. The point is still, yes, it's embarrassing that there's that kind of gap in Rodney Harrison's knowledge. What I don't understand, and I noticed you were tweeting about it yesterday, Damian, is the level of anger that then ensues. Is it not enough nowadays for someone to be embarrassed? Yes, they have a media platform. It's increased responsibility, I get it, by a gap in their knowledge. We all have embarrassing gaps in our knowledge we wouldn't want exposed. Is it not enough that the man must be humiliated by that? In addition, do we have to be angry at him, too, assuming that he didn't know that Kaepernick was a person of color? Now, if you think that he was making some commentary on his parentage, on Kaepernick's parentage and his upbringing, that's a separate subject. But if you take at face value what Rodney Harrison says, I didn't know, I don't know the reason to be mad.
To answer your question, yes, it's okay to be mad, because I'm not about that foolishness. I'm really not. First of all, you don't have to be a person of color to take up issues that, that affects, the community, of people of color. That's number one. I mean, that's the thing that really just blew my mind, the whole thing. Number two, who is Rodney Harrison's not the gatekeeper of blackness. Like, how are you, Rodney Harrison, able to tell Colin Kaepernick about his blackness? To me, it makes absolutely no sense. This whole thing, to me, boils down to this. First of all, don't be quick to jump into an interview or in front of a camera or whatever without having a clear, concise thought about this whole topic. This is a complex issue. It's been a complex issue for years. So I don't understand people that just quick to just make comments without thinking things through. I understand what you're trying to say, but I don't let them off the hook for just going on radio and just saying.
But then you're dealing with the content of his point, you're saying.
Yeah,
the content of his point itself is that even if Kaepernick's not a person of color because he didn't know, that so what? He still doesn't have to stand for the national anthem and still can protest police brutality.
Right. It don't matter if you're black, white, brown. It doesn't matter if you're seeing oppression. It doesn't matter what color you are. You have every right, you have a voice to say what you want to say. So when I saw that whole thing, literally, I almost blew my top. I think what you're seeing in this whole discussion, there's a lot of distraction going on. People making all these, these points that are distracting from the real issue, because they don't want to talk about the real issue because it's uncomfortable. It's been uncomfortable in this country for hundreds of years. That's really the problem with not only Rodney Harrison, but a lot of other people that comment that have this big gripe about the flag and want to bring up other issues like black on black crime, all that type of stuff. It's just a distraction trying to pivot the conversation from what we're really trying to talk about here.
But Damian, just quickly, look, as a Caucasian person, I will comment on these kind of issues, and take a position that may be very similar to yours. But if someone says, if a person of color says, yes, but in your protest, if for some reason you don't understand all the aspects of it because you haven't walked truly in my shoes, whether or not they articulate that in the best way, and obviously Rodney Harrison didn't, I do think that there is some legitimacy to that point of view.
Personally, I feel like this. You don't have to, if you're open-minded, you don't have to walk in a person's shoes to try to understand where they come from. That's what's missing in the whole equation right now, is people are so blinded. They don't want to see they don't want to hear what other people are trying to say. And that's the issue that not only myself, but a lot of other people of color have right now. Open your mind, people. Open your mind and listen. You might not agree with everything, but at least be open-minded about the things that the people of color are talking about.
Stephen A.
I know Rodney Harrison. I got a lot of love for him. I'm sincerely hoping that he doesn't end up getting in big trouble for this, because I think he does an exceptional job on NBC Sports, and I'm a fan of his work and a fan of his overall. But Max, I got to side with Damian Woody here. Rodney Harrison was wrong. Rodney Harrison crossed the line. And he crossed the line for a multitude of reasons. Like Damian said, what if Colin Kaepernick were white? So what? He doesn't have a right to have his opinion. What if he were a white man and he stood up and said, I'm sensitive to the plight of black Americans in this country, so I'm taking this stance? I would look at him and applaud him. I wouldn't see that as a reason to excoriate him. There are white people who assisted black Americans during the civil rights movement, which ultimately led to us acquiring our civil rights. It wasn't just black people marching. It was assistance from white America that propelled this country to elevated heights. We have to take that into consideration. As it pertains to Rodney Harrison, we also have to take into consideration that you are a former NFL player, 3-time Pro Bowler, 2-time Super Bowl champion. Colin Kaepernick was just in the Super Bowl 3-4 years ago. How in God's name did you not know he was black? What are you talking about? It's 2009 that you have been an NFL analyst for NBC.
So you believe him that he didn't know that he
I'm not going to say whether I believe or disbelieve. Yeah. I'm saying I'm shocked. Let's take him at his word and say he didn't know.
Yep.
Now I'm looking at you as an analyst because I'm like, you work at NBC. There's something called Sunday Night Football. Colin Kaepernick has been in the league for years. He took the 49ers to the Super Bowl. You cover the sport. How did you not know that he was? What were you watching? What were you? That makes no sense to me.
Especially a black quarterback.
He's a black quarterback. How did you not know? And you've been covering the NFL as an analyst for 8 years now, going on 8 years. That makes no sense to me. That's point number 2. Point number 3. And this is not popular, but I'm going to say this. You know, these kind of mistakes, I'm one of those who believe you're on live television. We make mistakes, okay? I believe that if you acknowledge the mistake, that you should be forgiven for it, as long as it's not something that's repetitive. When Rush Limbaugh made his mistake years ago, I didn't think he should get fired from ESPN for the mistake he made. I thought he should have been fired because he refused to apologize once the mistake was acknowledged. When Don Imus said what he said about Rutgers women, I thought that was beyond the pale. Damn it, step up and apologize. It was when he initially refused to apologize that I felt he should have been fired, because I'm about second chances. I also remember my man Rob Parker, friend of mine that I've known for many years, over 20 years. One of the best people I've ever known. And he was right on this show and made a colossal error in the words that spewed out of his mouth about RG3. He's not here anymore. So now we have to ask ourselves the question, how much latitude or leeway should one individual get? Should it be something that has uniformity across the board? If you make this mistake, you're gone. If you make this mistake, okay, apologize and move forward. Or are we just going to be subjective in who we elect to excoriate and who we elect to not do so too. We have to find a way, because see, conversations like this aren't getting us anywhere if we don't come to A, conclusions, and B, solutions. And what you were saying, Damian, I 100% agree with you. The color of Colin Kaepernick's skin, his ethnicity, should have had nothing to do with Rodney Harrison's opinion.
However,
and the fact that he did bring that into the equation is bad enough, but then when you were wrong about it, makes it worse.
However, and we could deal the Rush Limbaugh stuff another time, the actual content of what he said, I think you could approach from a different way. I think we could have a discussion about that in the future. Anyway, in terms of this stuff, what you seem to be saying, and I agree with both your points, that even if Kaepernick were a white quarterback, I think I would applaud the fact that, because we've been calling for it on this show, disagreed with Richard Sherman, the responsibility of white players. I agree that Aaron Rodgers and people like that in leadership positions could be doing more. I think it's important. I am not afraid to talk about these subjects. And so I agree with that point. But when we talk about why Rodney Harrison might be in hot water, you said you hope he's not in real trouble, but why is he in hot water? It's a confluence of events. None of them by themselves, I think, land him in hot water. Not knowing Kaepernick is African American, not knowing Kaepernick doesn't jeopardize him. Voicing an opinion that he believes that a quarterback who's not a person of color won't understand the plight of people of color the same way that someone else wouldn't get him in hot water. But the two combined seem to be the problem here.
Yeah, but the fact is that there's always an overlying factor. And the overlying factor is the reality that he brought race into the equation as it pertained to Colin Kaepernick, thereby intimating or insinuating that you only have the right to take such a position if you're black.
By itself, it doesn't get him in hot water, Stephen A. We know that.
I'm saying to you, it depends on the employer. It depends on the time. And it also depends on, the shrapnel of criticism, because we live in an age. This is why the blogosphere is so potent in this day and age, because companies mistakenly overreact to them. And there's nobody can rule out the possibility that they may not happen here with Rodney Harrison.
But see, here's my biggest point. If you're going to take away anything from what I have to say, is this. Forget the stuff about what Rodney Harrison said about the blackness, he's not black. My whole point is this. You are pivoting the conversation from the points of what Colin Kaepernick is trying to express. That there's not freedom and justice for all people. That's the problem. That's really the problem I had with Rodney Harrison. You hear it a lot of times with a lot of people out here, they're disgusted about Colin Kaepernick not standing up for the flag. So my message has always been, okay, let's get to the message. Let's talk about the message. Why aren't we talking about the message? You're still stuck on him standing up and saluting, but let's talk about the message behind the action. Nobody wants to go there.
Everyone's trying to co-opt the protest and make it about what they want it to be.
We gotta go. Captivating conversation.
I know we gotta
go.
But let's say this in fairness to Rodney Harrison. He's a good brother that does more good than bad. Let's take that into consideration. We don't have too many cats like him who's willing to call it like he sees it. He made a mistake here. Let's remember that. I would remember it with you. I hope people will remember it with me. Let's try to remember that with him while acknowledging that he was wrong here.
We'll leave it there. Thank you so much, Damian. Always appreciate your perspective.